Good evening and welcome to the call meeting of the Board of Regents. Good evening and welcome to the call meeting of the Board of Regents of Del Mar College, convening at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, August 20th. We do have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. And let's begin, if we could, please, with a moment of silence. Thank you. Elva, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us as together we say the Del Mar mission statement, which I believe is going to be up on the screen in just a minute. Or we will finally have that test I've been teasing you about to see how well you really know it. And you only thought I was kidding about that one these days, right? Del Mar College provides access to quality education, workforce preparation, and lifelong learning for student and community success. As a reminder, we are streaming this live, and I would ask people to be sure they turn off or mute their cell phones. And we're going to begin. The first meeting tonight is our budget hearing. We have two items on the agenda. The first is item number 1, the public hearing on the college budget for the fiscal year 2018-19, followed by any public comments. And I'm going to invite our brand new CFO, Mr. Raul Garcia, up to the podium at this point. Welcome.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Chair, Regents, and Mr. President. For the next few minutes, I want to highlight a few items with respect to this year's budget plan. So let's get started, okay? All right, so here's some topic items, a couple of slides, timeline, strategic initiatives, budget assumptions, pretty much similar information that you guys have seen over the last couple of presentations. Nothing really has changed significantly, but I'm just going to highlight a few items for you guys, okay? All right, let's get started. Here's the calendar. So the planning process started back in January, and we are now at the tail end of the public hearing of the budget plan. This is in accordance with state statute that requires us to have a hearing on the budget proposals. So here we are today. A couple of things on the timeline. There's really 3 phases to the process. The first process is to assess the resource allocation and then coming up with revenue estimates. Thereafter, we're allocating those resources to the operations of the organization as well as the strategic initiatives. And then the final phase, which is where we are today, is this governance piece where, you know, the budget proposals have been vetted by various stakeholders. These stakeholders include faculty, students, staff, the executive team, and also the public community that we serve. All right, strategic initiatives. Nothing has significantly changed, but I think the whole focus on some of the strategic initiatives relate to student safety initiatives, the redesign and development of new educational programs to enhance the quality of our programs and to meet the demands of our educated workforce in this growing local economy. A lot of things happening in Corpus Christi, very exciting time. Salary increases is also factored in for the purpose of retaining and attracting exceptional faculty and staff. Just to name a few. All right. Proposed budget assumptions. Earlier I said phase 1. Let's talk about what resources are available to us and what are the underlying assumptions to that revenue stream. All right. One of the things I want to point out, there are the three major areas of our source of funding is tuition, property taxes, and state appropriations. So later on I'll show you the pie chart that shows you that makes up 92% of our total revenues. big piece. So I'm just going to focus on the assumptions for that specific revenue stream. For the tuition revenue, we factored in a flat enrollment growth. And then we also took into consideration the $3 increase in the tuition rate, which was, I believe, approved back in January. And then lastly, we've seen an increase in the unfunded state mandates and institutional waivers that when we report that information is applied against the revenue stream of tuition and fees. So there, the increase, we're looking at a rate of 18.5%, which is an increase from last year's 16.5% relative to the tuition revenue stream that we get on an annual basis. Property taxes. There's really two components to that tax revenue base. This year's major increase is attributed to the increase in property tax evaluations. I guess, with all this construction that's happening in the south side of Corpus Christi, and I was about to say Chicago, and I do apologize.
And you had the right accent for Chicago, too.
And I grew up in the south side of Chicago, by the way. But in Corpus Christi, again, a lot of expansion, a lot of growth, new construction, and that is having a positive impact in our property tax revenue stream. Next item is state appropriations revenue. And what we're budgeting there is a flat level funding. Why? Because this is the second year of the approved state budget funding. So it's pretty much the same year over year for the 2 years that the budget provide us in funding. Okay. All right, moving along. All right. So at the end of the day, with 92% of the revenue stream coming in from state appropriations, tuition, and tax revenue, we're looking at a $2.8 million increase in our overall proposed revenues, or 3% relative to last year's budget. And as you can see here in this presentation, we're looking at the majority of that increase is really coming from the property tax base. Okay. Everything else, there's just minor increases year over year. The other thing I want to highlight is I believe you guys went over the student charges, a drop from of $1 million relative to last year's budget. And what that is really the adjustment to last year's proposed budget because of the hurricane impact it had in our revenue stream. So we recognize that if you look at our actual figures, it's trading at $24.2 million, which is relatively close to what we're projecting in this year's proposed budget of $24.8 million. So we're resizing, we're rethinking, and just adjusting that revenue stream to be a little bit more conservative than previously thought. Okay?
Before you move on.
Yes, sir.
If you look at the far right-hand column, which is the percent changes, those are obviously I'm asking this obviously for the public's awareness and understanding. Those are the percent changes from of the increase or decrease in the budget over last year.
That is correct.
So what it does not mean, for example, on property taxes, that property taxes went up 6%. It meant that the change compared to last year was 6%.
That is correct.
Yeah.
The
Just wanna make
change
sure, 'cause
relative to last year's
Right.
budget.
Because someone's going to see that and they're going to say, property taxes went up 6%. No, they didn't. The change compared to last year was 6%. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, great,
Yes.
thank you.
Note for next year, we'll probably redesign this presentation to highlight that. Okay. All right. So here's the pie presentation that I was referring to. As you can see, the bulk of the $100 million revenue stream for the 2019 budget, 54% of that is coming from property taxes. 15.8% is derived from state appropriations, and then the other 22% is coming from academic tuition. Now, these percentages is relative to the overall revenue stream. So if you compare that to the prior years, it's for the most part the same, but those percentages are slightly different because of the way that the information is calculated. To the overall revenue stream of 97.5%, we're looking at property tax at 52.8%, but the reality is it hasn't really changed that much relative year over year, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Next presentation. You're probably wondering, how are we spending the $2.8 million? We are a service organization, so I want to emphasize that 72% of our operating cost is salary and benefit driven. And because of our strategic initiatives that we want to keep, retain, and attract top talent, we've actually allocated the majority of this new funding to salaries, $1.9 million, and then the related associated $444,000 in benefits. The rest goes into non-salary expenditures, and I will talk a little bit more about the details in a little bit down in the presentation. Yep. So this is what the pie looks like for the operating and budget expenditures. As I mentioned before, salaries and benefits makes up the major component of our operating costs. Faculty, exempt salaries, non-exempt salaries, and the benefits, that's close to about 72% of the overall budget. No, actually, about 75%. Then you got contingency about 1.5, and non-salary expenses of 23.6%, which is pretty much trending consistently relative to last year's operating expense budget. All right, a little bit more detail of how we're spending the salaries. Keep in mind that this presentation speaks to full-time employees.
Full-time and part-time.
Okay, full-time and part-time. The allocation of those resources is where, and the percentages are very misleading. If you look at the overall allocation, we are allocating $900,000 to faculty, another $900,000 to exempt employees, which my understanding, some of the non-exempt employees may include nursing aides. Again, that's adding to the robust of our instructional programs, right? And then non-exempt employees of $87,000. So, and then the related benefits of $444,000. We break it down a little bit further. This is the presentation for full-time employees. We've allocated $174,000 to faculty, and then another $434,000 to non-faculty, in combination of raises and increasing the base of the salary base for faculty. As I mentioned before, there's a non-salary component which we've allocated approximately $600,000. This is a little bit more detailed information on how we've allocated, and it also presents the change relative to last year's budget proposal. I'm going to say that the bulk of the change in the increase funding is going to be in insurance, as well as the campus police, which is one of our strategic initiatives that we're trying to make student safety a priority for this institution. Okay? All right.
And technically in the election cost, because it was a zero amount last year, so that's a $170,000 item right off the bat, right?
I'm sorry.
And technically $170,000 in the election cost, which was on the prior page, because we didn't have anything last year. Go backwards.
Okay.
The region election.
Yeah, we have election in November.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
Right.
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
And I think it said here, 170,000. Those are the three major components to this increase in funding. Thank you, sir. All right, let's open up for any questions that you may have.
I have a question, Dr. Garcia, and it's probably for Dr. Escamilla. For the amount of money that we're spending on our benefits, our insurance, have we gotten any more since the first time that we talked about it? Because you were not gonna be able to go to your own doctors. Have we had anything added to that?
So there's been a change in the number of PCPs. Yes, there's been a significant increase there. And we're also finding that as we've moved ahead with bigger numbers of PCPs, there's been other groups, specialty groups or specialist groups that have since fallen off the insurance. So we've gained tremendously, and just as recently as last week, we found out we've lost some. So we continue with that discussion. We're learning more as it's rolling out, and but for the most part, we're better off than we were back in January, but we still have some gaps from our state health benefits side.
But but the cost has not gone up.
The actual premium has not gone up. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no plans to make any changes. Usually in September is when they make their changes on the carrier or the provider. And there's
So
no
we've
talk
just
about-
switched. We've just switched, and we're a little less than a year into
Is it a
coming up
multi-year
on a
contract?
year of. I'm sorry.
Is it a multi-year contract?
It's a 6-year contract, 7-year contract,
Yeah.
6-year contract.
Other questions for Mr. Garcia? I know this is fundamentally the same presentation we've heard a couple times now, but the purpose, just to remind you for tonight, is certainly to do one final review of the budget and allow any public comments. So at this point in time, I'm going to ask if there's, under agenda item number 2, if there's any public comments related to this, or any general public comments. Okay, Augie, do we need to take action on this, or we just accept it as it is? Under number 2?
There's no action right now, you just have to announce when you're gonna have next hearing. But since it is a public hearing, I would recommend that you keep it open for a little bit.
Okay. Can we go ahead and start the second meeting and leave this open? Or do we just need to recess for 10 or 15 minutes and?
10 minutes.
Okay. What Augie's saying is because this is a public hearing and it's only taking us, 17 minutes to go this far, we're going to take a recess while we allow more time for anyone else who might want to show up in public comment. And I'll call us back to order probably shortly before 6. And if there's no more public comments, we'll close this meeting and then go into the tax hearing. Okay? So we're going to be on recess for about 15 minutes. I call the meeting back into order out of our recess. I'm going to ask again at this point in time, are there any public comments about the budget hearing that we just conducted? No one signed up, sir. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to calendaring. I want to remind the Regents and those present today and those watching that our meeting, I'm going to just double check my calendar here, for when this is approved, is going to be Thursday, am I saying the 28th, right? Am I saying that correct?
Monday?
No. Tuesday, the 28th, at noon will be the budget and tax rate approval meeting. So that will be the last step in the regulatory or the process we do for budget and tax rate approval. So if you're interested, that's for just a tax only, and I was going to announce that at the tax meeting here in a minute. So, right. Okay. Hearing none, we'll close that meeting out. We'll adjourn that meeting, and at, I'm sorry? For the meeting on the 28th? Oh,
To adjourn.
5:59 p.m. And we will call to order the called meeting for the Regents looking at the tax rate. Since we've called to order, we have a quorum, we will not repeat the silence, pledge allegiance, and mission statement, and we will go right into the tax rate presentation from Mr. Garcia.
Yes, good evening once again, Mr. Chair, the Regents, and Mr. President. The following presentation is an overview of the proposed 2019 tax rates for the maintenance and operations and the debt service tax rate. Let's get started. All right, the M&O tax rate revenue is the source of funding for our operations, in addition to the debt service payment relating to our revenue bonds. This is very unique because we also have another tax rate that's specifically intended for the bond obligations, general bond obligations. So two different types of funding streams for this institution, okay? So, but specifically, coming back to the maintenance and operations, the tax rate for this year is 0.209693 for every $100 in property tax assessed value, which translates to $54.6 million in revenues for this institution, again, to fund our operations and our revenue bonds, the debt service payment. This translates to an increase of $3.2 million relative to last year's $54.6 million. In addition to that, the tax rate is 5.4% above the effective tax rate of the 0.198909. And a couple of assumptions here. This translates to the cost to the taxpayer of $6.45 for a property tax value of approximately $161,550. The $6.45 is the increase relative to last year's, or it's the incremental increase to the taxpayer from last year. Note, this assumes that you know, the property value remains the same, but obviously with, you know, there's current demands in the stock market, and we've seen growth in the construction, and at least in the south side of Corpus Christi. So, but again, this is just to provide an example what that translates to in terms of the cost to the taxpayer. If you look at the 4-year trend, it's pretty much reasonably the same in terms of the rate. And interesting enough, when I did the translation, it almost seems like from a $1 assessed value, it's under a penny, it seems like. I thought that was very interesting. Anyway, moving right along. The proposed debt service tax rate. This revenue stream is intended to fund the debt service payment of the general obligation bonds. And I'm going to, yes, and so we have, I think the voters have adopted capital budget plan for the East and West campus of, I believe, $157 million. And that is for the construction, renovations, and a few repair maintenance that need to happen in East and West campus. I think there was also a voter approved back in, I believe, November of 2016 for $137 million to construct the South Campus. And so we recently issued, in 2018, we recently issued about $101 million to fund ongoing construction projects. So because of that recent issue, that has translated to an increase, a significant increase in the tax rate relative to last year. So this translates to $18.5 million in revenue stream for this year. Our tax rate is 0.072192, which is up from last year's 0.053463. Again, driven by the additional incremental increase of the new debt service of our 2018 bond issuance. Okay. So the combining total at the end of the day is 0.281885 per every $100 of the property assessed value. Yes. Again, slightly significantly increasing relative to last year's 0.259163, being that this is a combining component of both the M&O rate and the debt service. The biggest increase contributing to this change is the debt service tax rate. Any questions?
Regents, any questions or comments for Mr. Garcia?
I'm working hard to come up with something just to haze him on his first day of making presentations, but I don't have anything.
I was going to say
I'm at
that
a loss.
after 3 weeks for him to get up there, we gave you the full month, Mr. Garcia. We could have started you fresh in the new fiscal, but you jumped right in, and I've got to give you credit for taking the reins even earlier than we were expecting you to. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much. I guess the honeymoon is over, is that correct?
You ended it, not us.
What wasn't a very long honeymoon period, was it? Yeah. At this point, are there any public comments or anyone that would like to address the board? Okay, like earlier, I'm going to recess the meeting briefly, probably for about 15 or 20 minutes, in case there's any other public that would like to come, and then we'll call the meeting back in order and close it out. So we're going to be recessed at 6:06 p.m. It is 6:18 p.m. and we're going to come out of recess, and I'm going to ask it again at this point in time if we have any public comments related to the tax rate hearing for tonight. Any public comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on the agenda to calendaring. I want to remind those that are here tonight and that are watching online or listening that Tuesday, August 28th at noontime will be the last budget and tax-related meeting of the Regents, and that is the time in which we will approve both the budget and the tax rates. Yes, ma'am.
Just one quick reminder that we do have a media event on Wednesday at the Gulf Coast Growth Ventures. You all do have an invitation in front of you, and for those of you who can make it, we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Are you going to give us any clue what it's about?
A major announcement of some funding that several of our exec team members have been working on very hard for a long time.
There you go. In other words, she's not going to tell us. We have to come to find out. Spoken like a true PR professional. Great. Any other calendaring items? If not, we are adjourned at 6:19 and a half p.m. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Yes, say it again. Sorry. At Thursday, we do have our second tax rate hearing. Thursday at 5:30 here. Okay. Adjourned at 6:20 now p.m. Thank you.